The next keynote presentation, we're going to go to New York Times. Exciting. Yeah, I think that's very exciting. So open your hearts, open your minds, and take notes, and welcome with love, applause, and everything you can, Deborah Acosta! Welcome to the stage. You wanna hate me? 'Cause hate is all the world's even seen lately. You wanna hate me? 'Cause hate is all the world's even seen lately.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Deborah Acosta, journalist with the New York Times. And what you see here behind me is the moment I discovered some photographic slides on a street corner in New York City. Now, these slides were just flying all over the place. It was a super windy day, and I was incredibly curious about them. So I picked them up, as you can see here, and I looked at them through the light, and I noticed that these were no ordinary family photographs. These were photographs that depicted, adventurous scenes from Africa and Antarctica. It depicted model planes flying through the air, and I just wanted to know the story behind it. So at that moment, I followed the slides, I followed my curiosity, and it led me to this trash bag filled with these memories, these fragments of somebody's life. And at that moment, I thought, why don't we try to solve this mystery live? Now, this is not ordinarily the kind of story that the New York Times would do live, me picking through trash in the middle of the city, but I was lucky because I had been tasked to focus for an entire year on live interactive journalism through the use of Facebook Live, and we thought, maybe this is worth doing. Maybe this is something that, it's an experiment that'll lead to something, or maybe it'll be nothing. But to be honest, this was not the first time that we had done live interactive journalism as part of our reporting process. Just a few weeks earlier, I had been producing a story about Caitlyn Jenner and her critics. And for those of you who don't know who Caitlyn Jenner is a very famous transgender activist in the United States. And she's very controversial. She used to be known as Bruce Jenner, the father of the Kardashians, and also an Olympic gold medalist. But what makes her controversial, even within the transgender community, is the fact that she has not given up her Republican views, and she voted for Donald Trump despite being transgender. So the story went that she was going to go to this very progressive transgender school in New York City, where they have gender-neutral restrooms, where they have a lot of transgender students, and meet them and see how it went. What we did is that we went in advance. We spoke with the students and asked them their thoughts about her. And of course, they all thought very negative thoughts about her. They said, she's not a great representation for our community. But when Caitlyn Jenner finally showed up, all these young students, these high school students, were completely starstruck. They listened to her story, she listened to their story, and ultimately, the students embraced her with open arms. It was very shocking for us. We didn't factor in the star quality and how these students would react to that. But we thought, wow, this is a really nice story, such a kumbaya moment, the students come together. That's it, right? Well, actually, at the end of this reporting day, we decided to go live. I was there with Nicholas Kristof, one of our opinion columnists at the New York Times, and he was the host of the video. He was interviewing Caitlyn Jenner, and we decided, hey, why don't we stand in front of one of the gender-neutral restrooms at the school, and let's do a little live segment on Facebook Live. Caitlyn Jenner will have the opportunity to interact directly with the audience. Kristof will take some questions. It'll be great. It'll be super interesting. And this is what happened. This is a little excerpt of what happened.
Before she left, we live streamed part of our conversation in front of the school's gender-neutral bathroom.
Caitlyn Jenner, you want to come on out? Hey, Caitlyn. Oh, do you
need to use the restroom? This is an all-gender restroom. You can use it.
We're safe here.
A lot of the comments were pretty tough to read. It's clear we have a long way to go. And while America debates bathroom policies, a crisis continues. Nearly half of transgender people will attempt suicide. But at least we're talking.
So basically, by going live at the end of our reporting process, it completely changed our narrative. it pierced a hole in our little media bubble that we had created, and it let in all this vitriol. I mean, this is the public opinion at that time regarding Caitlyn Jenner and transgender people. And it was super interesting because it really changed things, right? We're allowing public opinion to inject our reporting process as it's happening. And in this case, I think that's a really important part of the story because it shows us a few things. Number one, despite Caitlyn Jenner connecting with these students on a one-on-one basis at the school, people, and transgender people specifically, still don't accept her as part of their community. Number two, people in general in the United States are not very accepting of transgender people. And number three, it gave us a real look into the experience of a transgender person, not only in real life, but also on the internet. I mean, they get harassed horribly online. And actually, just a few months before this, a young transgender woman who had been doing makeup tutorials on YouTube was overwhelmed by all the negative comments she was receiving and decided to end her life. So immediately we realized this is an incredibly powerful medium as you're doing your reporting. You know, public opinion is such an important part of journalism, and especially with stories like these, you know, what public opinion is will ultimately decide whether or not people can have gender-neutral restrooms in the United States. So we realized how important this was. We realized it was exciting and very powerful. And this brings us back to this story that I started this presentation with, which was this moment where I discovered all these slides on the ground. So at this point, we're feeling pretty emboldened. We're excited. We're trying out as many things as we can and to see what sticks. And we decided to go live with this find and to see where it could take us. Let's incorporate the audience into this mystery and see if it leads anywhere interesting. And I'm going to play you a clip so that you get a sense of what the finished video product was like. And now, to give you a sense of this finished video product, this is an edited piece, a compilation of sorts, of all of these live videos that we did, incorporating the live comments that we received while we were doing this reporting. Kind of in the way a reporter goes out into the field with a reporter's notebook, and they take notes. And from those notes, they take the best parts and they put it together into a story. So the only difference here being that all of these live videos are still out there for people to see. And so basically, all of my reporter's notes are out there for people to go back and look at. And then I'm just going to show you the beginning part of this video, which gives you a sense of like my finished article or a finished video, if you will. So here's a little taste.
On one of the windiest days of the year in New York City, I followed a trail of Kodachrome slides to a trash bag filled with them. I thought maybe there'd be an interesting story, so I recorded myself picking them up and sent a clip to my editor. She was intrigued, so we went live on Facebook. That's me.
Hi, I'm Deborah Acosta, journalist with the New York Times. I found something kind of crazy walking down the street. They're actually really, really beautiful photographs. Let me show you guys.
The comments started streaming in immediately.
So this was just lying on the ground here.
People projected all sorts of meaning into the slides.
And 11th Avenue. And I followed it to this trash can, this random city.
And some people thought they were meaningless.
And I found this bag on the ground filled with beautiful Kodachrome slides. And I just can't imagine why someone would throw all this stuff away.
I always rescue things like this. It's like a life lost, and it always makes me sad.
Someone will undoubtedly throw my slides away when I die.
Nothing more tragic than family photos tossed into the trash.
As a former columnist for the St. Petersburg Times, I cannot imagine my editors would have ever approved a trash hunt for a story, live or not.
You never know. This might be an interesting story, John. I know it's live. We don't know. It might be nothing at the end of the day, or it might be something really cool. We don't know. That's the point. It's live.
And then a clue.
This says Mariana Gosnell and an address. And I'm not sure what that says. Does anybody know who Mariana Gosnell?
A few people quoted Gosnell's obituary. She was a journalist and author. Could she also be the photographer? And why were these images, a life's work really, thrown out? Once I looked inside and saw all the clues, I had to find out. So I enlisted the help of one of my colleagues, Todd Heisler, a Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times photographer.
Some people were very excited about this find, and others were just thought there's no importance whatsoever to something like this. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it's all important because, you know, look at that right there. I mean, you know, it's a life, or at least it's a fragment of somebody's life, and you know, it was important to them. Mm-hmm. So is it going to hang on a gallery wall? I don't know. But does that make it important or less important? No. I mean, that's a beautiful picture.
Mm-hmm. So as you can see, the commenters inject this story, our process, with their experiences, their thoughts, pieces of their nostalgia. And it actually helped us crack the code here. It helped us crack the mystery of who had left the slides, who took the photographs, and why. Mariana Gosnell's best friend ended up seeing the original live streams, and reached out and gave us a ton of context that helped us get a little further in the story. More and more people kept reaching out, and that's how we were able to solve this so quickly. In this case, this story is a little bit more, as I was saying, about nostalgia, about love and loss. And I feel like we were able to get at higher truths through these comments that people left. And it's an interesting experiment because I can see this being used in more investigative type stories where people, instead of injecting the narrative with their own nostalgia or like tips about who might have left a bag of slides somewhere, you can have tips coming in for all sorts of stories. So this was very exciting. And what we ended up doing was, like halfway through reporting this narrative, there was this really tragic situation that happened in Orlando, Florida. There was a horrible terrorist attack at a nightclub there, Pulse nightclub. And usually when something like this happens, the New York Times sends reporters, photographers, editors out to the scene to report on this and figure out what's going on. And in this case, because we were doing this experiment, they also sent me, the live interactive journalist for the New York Times, to see what it was that we'd be able to stream live from this event. And the first thing that we did was we identified someone who was the first survivor to leave the hospital after this horrible incident. And he was willing to talk to us. He wanted to talk to our audience and share what he had lived through. So his name is Norman Cassiano. Actually, I arrived there at the same time as CNN. This is Anderson Cooper, one of the more famous anchors from CNN. And ultimately, CNN kicked me out and did their interview first. But actually, it didn't matter because they didn't go live with their interview. When we went in second, we actually went live first. We got the information out in front of the audience before they did. And I think it's important because this is only 24 hours after this horrible event. There's a lot of misinformation going on. This is someone who bravely wants to come out and talk to the audience, and we're giving him the platform and the opportunity to do that as quickly as possible. I went back and I looked to see what CNN had done with this interview when they finally did air it. And this is, a very traditional setup. You have the anchor on camera. You have a lot of interaction between the subject and the anchor. Big headline at the bottom. And this is what we did. So it's very, very different. You have the subject looking directly to camera. He was able to talk at length. He went on for 30 minutes about what had occurred. The difference online, of course, is that you don't have any limits to the amount of time you can take with a video. So he really went in depth. It was completely unfiltered, not edited at all. And here on the right side of the screen, very important, this is what this looks like, what Facebook Live looks like live, without any editing, on your cell phone. You have almost half the screen filled with comments from people all around the world sending their support, sending their thoughts. So I think it's pretty powerful. And Norman was incredible. I mean, I asked him one question, and he spoke for 30 minutes, and it was absolutely riveting and incredible to listen to him speak. And we were so happy that we were able to connect with him to do this. So I think it shows this example shows how powerful this medium can be in a breaking news scenario. And obviously, no one denies that live makes sense when you're dealing with breaking news. But
are begging him not.
Oh, sorry. And here's a clip.
They're yelling at him, "Please don't shoot! Please don't shoot! Just spare our lives!" Like, we didn't see your face. We don't know who you are. We haven't heard your voice. All I heard was a laugh when he shot the boy before he shot the stall. He laughed like an evil laugh. Like something that's just going to be imprinted in my head forever. I can go to sleep, close my eyes, and that's literally the first thing I can hear is bullets hitting the floor, the gun being reloaded, and that laugh. A laugh of like, ha, like I did it. I'm getting rid of all of you. So then I guess it enticed him to shoot more. I was screaming and begging, and he put his hand over the stall. That's when I was able to see that he was a tan person, and I was able to see the smaller gun that he did use first, and then he just started shooting. At that point I turned like this to like try to get away from the front where the gun was, but it was too late and it had hit me on this side. And it was another entrance and exit wound.
So this is pretty much how the interview went. He was completely unfiltered. He talked directly to camera, and it was incredibly powerful for many, many reasons. As you can see here at the bottom, this is what happens when the video is live. You see a lot of emoticon reactions from people. You see the person's photograph from Facebook, their profile pic, and their name and the comment, obviously. So again, it's undeniable that during breaking news scenarios, live interactive journalism is super useful. But it's also useful when we're dealing with longer term projects. So this is an undocumented immigrant from Ecuador. She's in New York City, and I met her because I noticed that in front of the health department building in New York, there was an incredibly long line of people. No one had ever seen such a long line of people outside the health department before. And so I showed up there, armed with my cell phone as usual, and I asked, what are you guys in line for? Usually when I see lines like this, it's for like a concert or something. Like, what are you guys in line for? And it turned out the majority of them were undocumented immigrants who were afraid of being deported, and were there to gather their children's birth certificates, to get extra copies of their children's birth certificates. These are children who are American born, have American citizenship, but the parents do not. They're undocumented. And so they were afraid that if they were deported the way that Donald Trump was saying in the news, that they would be separated from their children, their American born children. So all of this fear became this line in New York City, this incredibly long line that went completely around the block for weeks as these parents went, picked up these birth certificates. And the goal of picking up the birth certificates was if they had an error on them, they wanted to make sure that these birth certificates were completely correct. They wanted to make sure that they could get double citizenship for their children. Many of them needed an extra birth certificate to go to the Ecuadorian or the Mexican consulate to make sure that their children were also Mexican citizens, so that if they did get deported, they could take their children with them. So what I did is, when I discovered this, I decided to go the entire week, Monday through Friday. And whoever was willing to talk, which is not easy when you're an undocumented immigrant, whoever was willing to talk live to our audience, I interviewed them, and I created a space where the undocumented immigrants were able to talk directly to the audience, and the audience can talk with each other about this issue. And I will play you again another produced clip from the interview I did with this woman. This is Monday, with this the Ecuadorian woman.
El presidente nos dice que si no somos nacidos aquí que nos van a deportar. Ese es el problema. Hola, di así a la cámara. Hola, di.
Hola.
Eso sí. Hola, señorita, di.
Hola, señorita.
Todos los días es una fila horrenda de papás que están arreglando los papeles de los niños. Ellos son nuestros hijos y no podemos dejarlos a ellos abandonados. Sí, es que es una hija, no podemos dejarle abandonando a ella.
So I think that in an era where the public is more and more suspicious of the media, having these interviews be completely transparent and out in the open brings the audience closer to you. I also think that in this era where there's so much debate about these particular types of issues between one side and the other, to have these conversations out in the open in this way can only bring us closer together. So this was really interesting and exciting for me to do during a week there, just to see the comments and what people thought and how they argued with each other one way or another. And here, this is another woman, Esmeralda. She was willing to give her name. We have featured her in the print article as well. So by the way, these are videos and articles that are getting written about these stories. And Esmeralda was very defiant in her tone. She was like, there's no way that I'm leaving without my children. There's absolutely no way. She's like, I'm ready to go, but I need to get my birth certificates in order. I need to bring my children with me. But one thing I thought was super interesting here is that a commenter thought that she reminded her of her mother. And so I'll play that for you the moment that that commenter writes her comment. So I thought that was so interesting because I'm not from Europe, I'm from, Florida, and I don't have that kind of experience in my brain, Like I have no idea what it's like to have a mother that emigrated from Germany after World War II and like what their perspective is and, having a suitcase packed in the attic because they're so afraid that something might happen, that they have to go or that they'll get deported or whatever, seems so fascinating to me that this is not anything new. This is something that people have lived and have internalized. And, as a journalist, you try to be as objective as possible when you do your reporting. But at the end of the day, I don't have everyone's experiences locked inside of my brain. I only have my own experiences. And to open up the reporting and allow other people to inject that reporting with their objectivity, their experiences, it really, I feel like it leads to higher truths, no matter what they may be. Now, I think Facebook Live is also super exciting and interesting when it comes to connecting global communities. I had the opportunity to go to the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan. This is a Syrian refugee camp. I believe it's the largest in the world. And I mean, you see a lot of stories in the news about Syrian refugees, but how often do you get to actually ask them questions yourselves? These camps are incredibly difficult to get to, even if you wanted to. So the fact that I was able to go there and go live a few times with a few segments and allow the audience to come in and connect directly with these refugees, it was an incredible process for me, and it was really interesting to see what connections people would make when they met these people on the ground there. So I'm going to play you a little clip of a moment from, again, this is an edited compilation from the live moment that we had there on the ground in the Syrian refugee camp. We've had a lot of children that have come together here around the interview. We're going to ask them a couple questions. He's holding some feathers. There's a young boy from America that's asking, do they play sports?
ايش هاي؟ فوتبول. أنا مش زياد بالطاولة، أستاذ بيعرف يسوي حركات.
Tristan from the US is asking them what kind of sports they play, and they're showing him they play soccer. The boy in America, Tristan, he's 10 years old, he's saying, oh, they have such nice skills. He plays soccer too.
بس أنا نحن نعرف نلعب زيادة. بالشحاط ما بنعرفش أنبوط ممكن نعرف.
Oh wow, so they're even better than this, Tristan, just so you know. So this was pretty cool because, in this moment I realized there's actually more similarities than differences between this young boy in California, this American boy in California, and this young Syrian refugee in a refugee camp in Jordan. And how else would you get at something like that unless you connected them yourself in this live platform? So it's really exciting, and again, I feel like you really do get to higher truths when you connect people in this crowdsourced kind of way. So I guess the question is, where do we go from here? One obvious place that comes to mind for me is climate change. This is another topic where you have people on both sides of the aisle. There's not a lot of, at least in America, there's not a lot of overlap there between both sides. And I think that this would be an interesting topic to not only have out in the open, but allow the experts and the subjects and the audience members on both sides to kind of interact and engage in a live way around this topic that has created also a lot of distrust between the audience and the media. So, you know, I think this is really the next project that I would absolutely love to do. And once I do it, I hope I'll get to come back here and talk to you all about it. I guess my parting thought is that in an era of alternative facts and alternate realities, it's more important than ever to create transparency in journalism and in public discourse. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It was fantastic. What an eye-opener. That was intriguing. Christ. Yeah, do you want to ask questions?
Yeah, sure. I would like to ask you something e-commerce related. Because this is obviously an e-commerce conference, but I think NYT is a fantastic media, and you guys have reported a lot on, for example, Amazon and the horrible situation of the employees that was revealed at NYT. And I think there has been a lot of innovation when it comes to, for example, paywalls. So they kind of set that kind of trend for other medias in the world. But I'm going to ask you about something that you're really familiar with, and that is social media and the new live media. Do you have any advice for the companies and for the people visiting in the audience about how they can implement this in their businesses?
Sure. I mean, since you mentioned the paywall, I'll mention just really quickly, like I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering, like, well, this is free on Facebook. You're putting all this work and effort into this thing, and it's free. Like, it's crazy. Well, honestly, like a big part of what we do, number one is like, let's just do journalism and let's get it out to as many people as possible. But number two, this is a way to kind of create an entry point for people who may not be subscribers, right? They may see these interactions and they may be interacting directly with our journalists. Not only me, there are a lot of other journalists who are doing Facebook Live as well for the New York Times. And that kind of interaction is priceless, I think. I mean, I don't know how you all talk about it, but that kind of deep interaction between an audience member and your brand is incredibly important. And I don't know how else you would get that. Even in this situation here, I'm talking to all of you, but like none of you can like, I guess you can ask questions through them, but like with Facebook Live, like you're getting this like direct coordination and communication with the audience, and you're looking at your cell phone and you can pick yourself, the journalist picks who to respond to. And that kind of like direct interaction, I don't think anything beats it. Yeah.
I think New York Times is one of the medias in the world, I think, that has, have been quite clear on the digital transformation. That I think I read a story here that you in 2014 you decided that you should double the digital revenues from $400 million to $800 million. And you published a report now in July saying you're on track on that transformation. And I mean, but still, if you, for example, then check your content, when you check the Times video, there's no ads, there's nothing. I mean, how is this, what is the strategy behind, I mean, is it all about finding new subscribers, and that's why this is open and not protected, or?
So we do have ads for all our videos, except for videos that depict any sort of tragedy. So we're very sensitive to videos that depict tragic circumstances. So if maybe you've seen some videos that are tragic that don't have ads, but most of our videos do have ads on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very good point, because sometimes some Swedish newspapers, they have ads, you know, regardless. It can be a tragedy, but first of all, look at this bingo hall, and it's insensitive. Yeah, so that's a very good move.
Yeah.
Further questions?
Anything, Lena?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I think you've made a super convincing case for sort of how live interaction is almost a controlling mechanism for what otherwise could have been perhaps a slightly too sugar-coated story. I think you had a, sort of something in the beginning there with the feedback to Caitlyn Jenner, and then the reaction was actually quite negative. And I think to me that makes a lot of sense, and maybe that particular story wasn't the best example, but do you sometimes find that the feedback that you get from viewers is out of sync with what you would have thought the general audience would have commented? Is there sort of a bias sometimes that people are more likely to comment negatively? Because I find sort of working with social media, that's quite often the case, that you get more customer complaints than positive feedback, of course, because people are generally more motivated, it seems, if they have a negative opinion to actually voice that.
You'd be surprised. Number one, on Facebook, your identity is tied to the comments that you write. So I think that's really key there. It's really important. You're not going to get these crazy trolls. There are some trolls. There are people who create Facebook accounts with a pseudonym, and they just go in and they try to ruin your feed. But it's incredible how people in the comments who are connecting to the content police the feed themselves and call out the troll, and the troll just kind of scampers off. Also, if you find as a journalist that you're live and you notice a troll and you call out that troll live, they freak out because trolls are used to be hiding under bridges, right? That's their thing. And like if you suddenly you're like, hey troll, I see you, and like, what are you doing? They freak out and they run away. So live kind of has this great thing built into it that makes it so that you can kind of skirt around that.
It's like a vampire, you turn the lights off.
Yeah, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah.
I killed the room, sorry, I just, I thought that was a good image.
It's great.
Troll, I'm safe here. You stupid! Ah, and they shrink. That's very true.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
No, that's it.
That's it. That's definitely it. I'm just. Are you always on the lookout for a story? Can you ever relax? Because you seem you're very switched on.
Oh my God.
You're sitting at a party. Oh, that's interesting. And we're gonna go live.
Yeah.
You do always. Can you ever relax?
So I did. I was focused on live for a year, and right now, and for a year I had to do everything live.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. And it was, but it was super exciting and
so that's
interesting.
your private time when you work.
So now this year I don't have to do everything live. I have the option to go live if I want to or not, and it's a great happy medium.
That's good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Give it up again, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fascinating.